Welcome to International Human Resource Management Assignment 2. This is our group presentation and it's the case of localization and standardization. Today we have myself, Dean, and Chantal. So firstly, we'll be discussing localization and standardization and the debate of why it is important.
Localization refers to the extent to which jobs that are held by parent country nationals are transferred to and are replaced by local employees or host country nationals who are capable enough to fulfill the job requirements. It involves the process of modifying and adjusting the current human resource policies that multinational corporations use in the parent country in order to match and fit into the social and business environment of the host country. Localization involves the change in the level of reliance and dependence of multinational corporations onto their expatriates or parent country nationals, as they are swapped with local employees to perform managerial jobs. Allocating local talent to main positions in a subsidiary allows them to achieve opportunities for career development that can help improve their overall commitment and confidence to the subsidiary.
Standardization is often seen as a rational management initiative by M&Es. Standardization involves the transferal of HRM policies and practices to international operations from the M&E's headquarters. In most cases, standardization is carried out with the belief that these customary operations and processes will produce the most favorable performance for both partners. The aim of standardization is to regulate the workforce around the common standards and goals, which is proposed to encourage a sense of equal treatment among management associated with cross-border functions, and simultaneously focuses on a typical comprehension of what is expected from employees. That's through common management practices, and furthermore, consistent with the systems across the units of an M&E, this ensures dependability and reliability, which facilitates and increases operational efficiencies.
So why is this discussion important? The importance of international HRM in successful globalization has led to widespread study in the field. It has provided the basis for which we recognize the major components of international HRM, these being standardization and localization. The main concepts in use in international HRM are resource dependency and the resource-based view. Resource dependency highlights the effective control of organizational resources, whereas a resource-based view refers to utilizing an organization's specific resources, including that of the human resource system, in order to sustain a competitive advantage. With globalization continuing to grow, the discussion about standardization and localization is ever becoming more important. As firms expand internationally, they face the problem of whether they standardize or localize their operations. Each concept comes with its own pros and cons, and not one concept has it all. This is why the discussion is important. Multinational companies must understand both sides of each concept, as adopting one over the other will have major implications on the firm's operations and whether or not they are successful in their globalization efforts. For example, a firm expanding into a highly culturally different country, choosing to standardize their operations, may face rejection from the local population, whereas a firm looking to localize their operations may face problems with overall consistency and competitive advantage. Therefore, it is highly important that multinational companies understand both sides of standardization and localization in order to achieve a successful globalization.
So next, we will be discussing the key drivers or factors that influence standardization and localization of human resource systems and policies. The key driving factors that influences standardization includes the MNC's international business strategy, international human resource structure and its corporate culture, and the maturity and size of the MNC. Large-scale international organizations would want to have the same HR policies to exist in their subsidiaries. Therefore, this will include the business strategy of the subsidiaries to be aligned with the overall international business strategy of the company, which can be achieved by using the existing human resource structures and policies of the MNC. This will also depend on the strength and support of the company's corporate culture. There are also other factors that can influence standardization, such as human resource expertise, human resource consistency, resource power, and human resource experience. HR expertise is when HR top managers may believe that existing human resource policies and practices are distinctly superior and better than any other systems, even across an international scenario. Therefore, having that belief of carrying out the best human resource system can influence HR managers into generalizing that system into the company's subsidiaries. HR consistency. HR managers deem that corporate cohesiveness and consistency is required in order to achieve effectiveness and efficiency in the operations of a multinational corporation. This factor insinuates that in order for international human resource initiatives to work, there must be coordinated and an established set of HR activities that should be followed. Resource power. This factor refers to the advantage that a multinational corporation may have in their industry or global sector, with that belief that because of this, the parent company may have autonomy or control over the management decisions of its subsidiaries. HR experience. Finally, the multinational companies may be highly experienced at internationalizing or globalizing their human resource operations and already have the knowledge and abilities to practice human resource systems in global environments and can then successfully deliver and achieve a standardized approach. The key driving factors that influence localization of human resource policies can include the institutional environment of the host country. The institutional environment of the host country revolves around its education system, legislations, and industrial relations system. For instance, in terms of the education system, the required level of education or skills from employees can be lower or higher between different countries. So, the localization of human resource practices, such as making staffing decisions, the MNC would consider hiring managers and employees that are more familiar and aware of the local legislations in regards to the education system and employment relations. This slide also outlines 4 other factors or reasons to localization. So, firstly, with regard to expatriation, choosing local employees would help reduce management costs of the subsidiary rather than sending an expatriate to the host country that would require providing compensation packages that can sometimes cost higher than local staffing. Secondly, foreign firms may choose to do a localization approach of their HR practices in order to prevent any expatriation disadvantages, such as high expatriation failure rates because of poor performance, frequent changes among expatriates in managerial positions, and the lack of suitable candidates for expatriation as a result of candidates refusing overseas assignments because of having family limitations like their children's schooling and their spouse's career. The changes in the business environment, such as new legislations, can be difficult to understand and apply for foreign firms. So, the decision to have a localized and polycentric staffing approach would be more suitable for MNCs because local managers would be more familiar and sensitive to the local business environment. In China, the local managers build business networks and relationships known as guangxi. An advantage of managers that are sourced locally is that they're able to gain favors and local market information for the foreign company. Lastly, one of the problems that foreign firms face is the lack of local managerial talents among its subsidiaries. This is because local managers are unsatisfied with their career development, which leads to staff turnover. Therefore, choosing to employ more local managers as heads of the subsidiaries can allow the parent company to achieve loyalty among its local managers and employees and in turn reduce talent turnover.
So, what are the major debates about the topic in the literature? The major arguments on standardization are that many multinational companies aim to transfer their strategic HRM policies overseas to subsidiaries. These policies mirror the company's principal values and beliefs that have been founded in the home country. Theoretical research conducted has outlined that one of the major advantages of multinational companies transferring their practices and policies and standardizing them is that it is a source of competitive advantage, cooperation, and efficiency. A major argument for Western multinational companies is to use the ethnocentric approach in terms of transferring their strategic HRM policies overseas, as this would increase the advantages of superiority, consistency, and competitive advantage. The action of shifting home country practices to subsidiaries attempts to standardize the company's practices amongst its operations. This standardization is envisioned to smooth the transfer of multinational companies' competencies across the organization. It is also intended to simplify the strategic HRM practices throughout the business's operations. With standardization, many multinational companies will transmit their industrial relations. For example, Western companies prefer performance-related pay, whereas Japanese companies prioritize seniority-based pay. Another major advantage is that it improves hands-offs between the different departments. Now, the major arguments for localization are that as many multinational companies transfer their strategic HRM practices to subsidiaries, they may need to alter these practices to comply with local standards and to show the local population that the company has a vested interest in the country. This results in what we call localization. As standardization is concerned with the ethnocentric approach, localization is more concerned with the polycentric approach, which heavily emphasizes the norms of the host country, where subsidiaries are usually managed by corporate personnel from the local country, and these are what we call host country nationals. Cultural factors are considered a major issue for subsidiaries. These factors require localization to occur, which may be seen as a downside to said localization. Multinational companies must transfer power to their local subsidiary in order to appear invested in the locals. In doing so, they would become more legitimate to the local population. Transferring home country practices can be unproductive in culturally distant countries. Many multinational companies need to incorporate localization aspects, as it is hard to silence the host country employees' cultural values and their beliefs. Therefore, management in multinational companies are likely to adjust and alter their practices and policies to fit the local setting. Another major argument for localization is to mitigate cultural sensitivity. Multinational companies need to adapt their policies and practices to fit the locals. This can be from changing their colors or even just changing the words or phrases in their policies. This way, they avoid being culturally insensitive. Now, given both arguments for standardization and localization, there's a third option, a dual approach. For a successful adoption of strategic HRM policies and practices, multinational companies should endorse both exogenous and endogenous factors that affect whether or not they localize or standardize their operations. Therefore, multinational companies may choose to create a dual standardized, localized approach. A dual approach can lead to mutual learning and compromises. Multinational companies are expected to benefit from improved work relations with host country nationals through a dual approach.
How has the issue been dealt with in practice? When dealing with standardization or localization of HR procedures in practice, there are a number of fundamentals that must be considered in order to ensure success. Practices such as recruitment, training, promotion, performance appraisals, financial rewards, and knowledge transfer are essential to IHRM when standardizing or localizing in another country. Realistically, MNCs must either standardize or localize the manner by which they oversee HRM strategies and practices in host countries. However, it can be argued that a dual approach, which involves ensuring a HRM strategy that balances the need for global integration with the demands of local responsiveness, is a favourable one. It is highly effective and important for MNCs to apply HRM policies to complement the existing culture in the country where the subsidiary exists. Local responsiveness is also important for MNCs to be aware of, in addition to cultural awareness training. The importance of understanding the complex nature of international business approaches within diverse cultures was especially demonstrated in the Citibank Tanzania case. The Kamuche and Nuham Kandini 2012 study referred to two banks in Tanzania, an Eastern African country, which is a developing region with poorer national institutional system, a high rate of unemployment, and high rates of poverty. The study compared the Citibank Ltd, which is an American-owned bank and is one of the most global companies providing financial services and products, and a Standard Bank, a South African bank. Both banks claim to implement a dual approach for standardization and localization. However, the results showed otherwise. By interviewing employees at the two banks, they were addressed on how HR activities such as recruitment, career development, and training were conducted. The evidence at Citibank revealed that management policies and HR practices adopted a more standardised approach by identifying a strict compliance to HRM policies as directed by head office. This was perceived by practices in the workplace environment, which were unmistakably American in both cultural and in terms of work ethics. Given the nature of the sector and client services wherein the bank was associated with the nation, the utilisation of cutting-edge ICT had a huge effect in the manner organisational frameworks were structured and standardised, and the level of compliance to standard operating methods expected both employees and management. Each facility was also equipped with a common lounge whereby employees could spend their lunch breaks watching or reading American newspapers and TV channels. No local television was allowed. This notion of building an American atmosphere was further encouraged by the regulation that all employees were required to have lunch at the branch canteens and were strictly not authorised to bring in meals from outside. They were also required to comply with a strict dress code and speak in an American accent on the phone. Financial rewards were also utilised to reinforce this culture. Camuche and Newham Kandini noted the above forms of socialisation and identity creation as a mechanism to realise knowledge appropriation by getting employees to align their everyday lives and sense of who they are with the bank's corporate objectives. The use of expatriates from head office in America reinforced the standardisation throughout Citibank's practices. The study noted their main responsibility was to deliver training to local employees, exerting significant personal and cultural authority through direct supervision, and by ensuring compliance with formalised procedures. They were also a key decision maker in ICT budget control and project management. Taking a more dual approach, Standard Bank employed representatives and expatriates from South Africa with a minority from Namibia. Employees could easily and freely chat and interact with one another, and the atmosphere was clearly more relaxed, with less pressure felt by employees than Citibank. For training purposes, the branches and head office were equipped with both local and foreign magazines, videos, and textbooks. Some videos were even translated into the local language Swahili. Overall, HRM policies were given instruction from head office, but responded to local context. Local responsiveness was noted to be a mix between individualised and collective team approach.
Thanks for listening to our presentation. Are there any questions?